Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight I'm reading some workplace drama stories that will either put you to sleep or keep you wide awake questioning humanity. So, grab whatever you're working on, get comfortable, and let's jump into some peak job site chaos. These stories are straight from various workplace subreddits, and trust me, some of these people definitely need to find new jobs. Anyway, let's get started. My co-worker turned our office server room into a cryptocurrency mining operation and nearly burned down the building. I work as a systems administrator for a mid-sized financial services company with about 80 employees. We have a decent-sized server room that houses our main database servers, networking equipment, and backup systems. The room is climate-controlled and has restricted access, with only 3 of us in IT having keycard permissions. About 6 months ago, we hired a new network technician named Marcus, who had solid credentials and seemed to know his stuff during the interview process. He was enthusiastic about technology trends and mentioned having some experience with blockchain and cryptocurrency, which seemed like it could be valuable knowledge in our financial services environment. Marcus settled into his role well initially. He was punctual, handled his assigned tasks competently, and seemed to work well with our existing IT team. He was particularly interested in our server infrastructure and would often volunteer to work late or come in on weekends when we had maintenance windows or system updates scheduled. After about 2 months, I started noticing some unusual patterns in our server room's power consumption and cooling costs. Our monthly utility bills were significantly higher than normal, and the air conditioning system seemed to be working harder to maintain proper temperatures. I initially attributed this to the summer heat and perhaps some aging equipment running less efficiently. Around the same time, I began hearing strange humming and whirring sounds coming from the server room that I didn't recognize. When I investigated, Marcus would usually be in there performing what he claimed was routine maintenance or monitoring system performance. He always had reasonable explanations for his presence, and the sounds would stop whenever I was around. The first real red flag appeared when I noticed several new pieces of equipment in the server room that weren't part of our standard infrastructure. Marcus explained that he had brought in some personal testing equipment to better understand our network performance, and that he was experimenting with optimization techniques that could benefit our systems. I became more suspicious when I realized that Marcus had been scheduling an unusual amount of after-hours and weekend work time. He would badge into the building at odd hours and spend several hours in the server room, supposedly working on projects that didn't seem to correspond with any official IT initiatives or maintenance schedules. During one unannounced weekend visit to check on a backup process, I discovered the truth about Marcus's activities. The server room was filled with cryptocurrency mining rigs that he had carefully concealed behind our legitimate equipment. He had installed dozens of high-powered graphics cards, specialized mining hardware, and additional cooling fans throughout the room. Marcus had essentially turned our corporate server room into a massive cryptocurrency mining operation. He had tapped into our electrical systems to power his mining equipment, and was using our internet bandwidth and cooling infrastructure to support his personal cryptocurrency business. The setup was sophisticated and must have required months of planning and installation. The immediate concern was the fire hazard and electrical overload his mining operation was creating. Our server room's electrical systems weren't designed to handle the additional power draw from dozens of mining rigs, and the heat generated by his equipment was overwhelming our cooling systems. The combination of excessive electrical load and inadequate cooling created serious risks for both his mining equipment and our critical business systems. When I confronted Marcus about the mining operation, he initially tried to deny that the equipment was his. He claimed it belonged to another company that was renting space in our server room as part of some kind of co-location arrangement. When I pointed out that no such arrangement existed, and that I had security footage of him installing the equipment, he became defensive and argumentative. Marcus then tried to justify his mining operation by arguing that cryptocurrency mining was a legitimate technology business and that he was simply using unused space and resources that weren't harming our company operations. He claimed his mining activities were actually beneficial because they provided additional security monitoring for our server room. I immediately documented the entire mining setup with photos and video evidence, then reported the situation to our Chief Information Officer and Human Resources. The security and facilities teams were also involved because of the electrical safety concerns and unauthorized modifications to our building infrastructure. The investigation revealed that Marcus had been stealing electricity, internet bandwidth, and climate control resources worth thousands of dollars per month to operate his personal cryptocurrency mining business. He had also created serious safety hazards by overloading electrical circuits and generating excessive heat in a room containing critical business systems. The electrical engineering consultant we brought in determined that Marcus's mining operation had pushed our server room's electrical systems dangerously close to their limits. The additional power draw could have caused circuit failures or electrical fires that would have destroyed not only his mining equipment, but also our company's critical servers and data systems. Marcus was terminated immediately and escorted from the building by security. The company pursued legal action to recover the costs of stolen utilities and to address the safety violations he had created. We also had to invest significant resources in removing his mining equipment, repairing electrical systems, and ensuring that our server room infrastructure was safe and properly configured. The incident led to enhanced security protocols for our server room, including more frequent inspections, better monitoring of power consumption, and stricter controls on equipment installation. We also implemented policies requiring approval for any personal equipment or projects in our facilities. The whole experience was a wake-up call about how employees with technical access can exploit company resources for personal gain, even in ways that create serious safety risks for everyone in the building. Marcus had essentially turned our workplace into his personal cryptocurrency farm while putting our entire operations at risk. That's the end of that story. The audacity of turning your employer's server room into a crypto mining farm while creating literal fire hazards is beyond belief. Marcus basically treated the company's infrastructure like his personal get-rich-quick scheme and nearly burned down the building in the process. Sometimes, greed makes people completely forget about basic safety and professional ethics. My employee has been faking workplace injuries for workers' compensation while running a successful fitness coaching business on the side. I'm the operations manager at a warehouse distribution center, where we handle inventory for several retail clients. The work involves lifting, moving packages, and operating machinery, so workplace injuries are unfortunately not uncommon, despite our safety protocols and training programs. 8 months ago, we hired David as a warehouse associate with previous experience in similar facilities. His background check was clean. He passed our physical requirements assessment, and he seemed motivated to learn our procedures and safety protocols. During his first month, David appeared to be a reliable employee who followed safety guidelines and worked well with his team. About 3 months into his employment, David reported his first workplace injury. He claimed he had strained his back while lifting a heavy package and was experiencing significant pain that made it difficult to perform his normal job duties. He provided medical documentation from a doctor supporting his injury claim and began receiving workers' compensation benefits. David's injury seemed legitimate, and we accommodated his restrictions by assigning him to lighter duty tasks that didn't involve heavy lifting or repetitive movements. He appeared to be in genuine discomfort and was careful about his movements around the warehouse. His doctor's appointments and physical therapy sessions seemed consistent with someone recovering from a back injury. However, after about 6 weeks of light duty work, David reported that his back injury had worsened and that his doctor was recommending extended time off for recovery. He submitted additional medical documentation supporting his need for temporary disability leave and continued workers' compensation benefits. During David's absence, one of his co-workers mentioned seeing social media posts that seemed inconsistent with someone suffering from a debilitating back injury. The posts showed David engaged in various physical activities that would have been impossible if he was truly experiencing the level of pain and mobility limitations described in his medical reports. I decided to investigate these claims more thoroughly and discovered David's Instagram and TikTok accounts, where he was actively promoting his personal fitness coaching business. His social media content showed him demonstrating complex workout routines, lifting heavy weights, and leading high-intensity fitness classes for paying clients. The contrast between David's claimed inability to perform basic warehouse tasks due to back pain and his energetic fitness coaching activities was stark and obviously fraudulent. He was posting videos of himself deadlifting hundreds of pounds while simultaneously collecting workers' compensation benefits for a back injury that supposedly prevented him from lifting 20-pound packages. David's fitness coaching business appeared to be quite successful, with dozens of clients and regular group fitness classes. He was advertising personal training services, nutrition coaching, and specialized workout programs. His social media marketing emphasized his expertise in helping people overcome physical limitations and achieve fitness goals through proper exercise techniques. The irony was that David was using his workers' compensation benefits to fund a fitness business where he was demonstrating exactly the type of physical capabilities he claimed to have lost due to his workplace injury. He was essentially being paid by our insurance company to not work while building a competing business that proved he was physically capable of demanding work. I compiled evidence of David's fraudulent injury claims, including screenshots of his social media posts, business marketing materials, and video evidence of him performing strenuous physical activities. I also documented the timeline of his injury claims compared to his fitness coaching activities to show the clear pattern of deception. When I presented this evidence to our workers' compensation insurance carrier, they immediately launched a formal investigation. Insurance fraud investigators began surveillance of David's activities and gathered additional evidence of his fraudulent claims. The case was also reported to law enforcement because workers' compensation fraud is a serious criminal offence. During the investigation, David continued posting fitness content and promoting his coaching business, apparently unaware that his social media activities were being monitored as evidence of insurance fraud. He even posted videos talking about the importance of persistence and overcoming challenges, which seemed particularly inappropriate given his fraudulent injury claims. The insurance company's investigation revealed that David had filed similar fraudulent workers' compensation claims at 2 previous employers. He had apparently developed a pattern of faking workplace injuries to collect benefits while pursuing his fitness coaching business. His medical documentation was found to be based on exaggerated symptoms and misleading information provided to healthcare providers. David was arrested and charged with workers' compensation fraud, insurance fraud, and theft of services. The total value of his fraudulent claims exceeded $15,000 across multiple employers. He eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to community service, restitution payments, and probation. Our company had to deal with increased workers' compensation premiums and additional scrutiny from our insurance carrier because of David's fraudulent claims. We also implemented more thorough background checks and social media monitoring for employees filing injury claims to prevent similar fraud in the future. The case highlighted how social media can provide evidence of fraudulent behavior, but also showed how determined individuals can exploit workers' compensation systems through deliberate deception. David's fitness coaching business was actually quite impressive in terms of his marketing and client development, but he chose to fund it through insurance fraud rather than building it legitimately. The whole situation was particularly frustrating because David clearly had the physical capabilities and business skills to succeed in legitimate employment or entrepreneurship. Instead, he chose to commit fraud that ultimately damaged his reputation, created legal problems, and affected workers' compensation costs for honest employees at multiple companies. That's the end of that story. The absolute nerve of collecting disability payments for a fake back injury while simultaneously running a fitness coaching business and deadlifting hundreds of pounds on social media is peak criminal stupidity. David literally created a video evidence trail of his own insurance fraud while promoting his strength and physical abilities to potential clients. Sometimes people are so focused on scamming the system that they forget basic common sense about not documenting their crimes online. My boss started making employees compete in bizarre physical and mental challenges to determine promotions and salary increases. I work in the sales department of a software company that develops customer relationship management tools for small businesses. We have about 25 sales representatives and support staff who generally work in a collaborative environment focused on meeting quarterly targets and maintaining client relationships. 6 months ago, our company hired a new sales director named Craig, who had previously worked at several high-pressure tech startups. He came with strong recommendations and claimed to have innovative approaches to motivation and team building that had dramatically improved performance at his previous companies. Craig's initial changes to our sales processes seemed reasonable and potentially beneficial. He introduced more detailed performance tracking, established clearer goals for individual and team achievements, and implemented regular coaching sessions to help representatives improve their closing techniques and client communication skills. But after his first month, Craig began implementing what he called performance optimization challenges that went far beyond traditional sales competitions. Instead of simple contests based on revenue generation or client acquisition, Craig created elaborate physical and mental challenges that he claimed would identify the most dedicated and capable team members. The first challenge involved a scavenger hunt throughout our office building, where employees had to solve riddles, complete physical tasks, and demonstrate various skills unrelated to sales work. Craig announced that the winners would receive priority consideration for an upcoming promotion and a bonus of $2,000. Initially, most employees participated enthusiastically, thinking it was a fun team-building exercise. The challenges included things like assembling furniture, blindfolded, memorizing and reciting company policies, performing basic math calculations under time pressure, and completing obstacle courses Craig had set up in our conference rooms. But Craig's challenges quickly became more extreme and uncomfortable. He organized eating contests where employees had to consume increasingly unpalatable foods, endurance challenges that required staying awake for extended periods, and physical competitions that were more appropriate for reality television than a professional workplace. One particularly uncomfortable challenge required employees to give impromptu speeches about their personal failures and weaknesses, while Craig scored them on their honesty and vulnerability. Another involved solving puzzles while being subjected to loud noises, flashing lights, and other distractions designed to test concentration under stress. Craig announced that promotion decisions and salary increases would be based primarily on performance in these challenges, rather than traditional sales metrics like revenue generation, client satisfaction, or professional development. He claimed that the challenges revealed character traits and abilities that were more important than conventional job performance measures. Several employees expressed discomfort with the increasingly bizarre nature of Craig's challenges, but he dismissed these concerns as resistance to innovation and lack of commitment to personal growth. He suggested that employees who weren't willing to participate fully in the challenge program might not be the right fit for a dynamic, high-performance sales environment. The situation reached a breaking point when Craig organized what he called the ultimate challenge, which involved employees spending a weekend at a remote location, participating in survival-style activities, including building shelters, foraging for food, and completing various physical and mental tests while being filmed for his personal evaluation. Craig positioned this weekend challenge as the final test for determining who would receive the most significant promotions and salary increases. He said that employees who declined to participate would be demonstrating that they weren't committed to their professional development and might need to consider whether they belonged on his sales team. Several employees, including myself, refused to participate in the weekend survival challenge. We felt that requiring employees to engage in potentially dangerous activities unrelated to our job responsibilities was inappropriate and possibly illegal. We also questioned whether Craig's evaluation methods had any validity for determining sales performance or leadership potential. Craig became hostile toward employees who declined to participate in his challenges and began treating us differently in terms of assignment distribution, meeting inclusion, and general workplace interactions. He made comments suggesting that non-participants lacked the competitive spirit and dedication necessary for success in sales careers. The situation escalated when one employee was injured during a physical challenge that required climbing over office furniture while carrying heavy objects. The injury required medical attention and raised serious questions about workplace safety and liability for Craig's unconventional performance evaluation methods. I documented Craig's challenge program and the discriminatory treatment of employees who declined to participate, then reported the situation to human resources and upper management. Several other employees also filed complaints about the hostile work environment and safety concerns created by Craig's bizarre evaluation system. The investigation revealed that Craig's challenge program violated multiple company policies regarding workplace safety, equal treatment of employees, and appropriate performance evaluation methods. His approach to promotions and salary decisions was found to be discriminatory and potentially exposed the company to significant liability issues. Craig was immediately suspended pending a full review of his management practices. The weekend survival challenge was cancelled, and all promotion decisions made based on his challenge results were reviewed and revised according to traditional performance metrics and professional qualifications. During the investigation, it came to light that Craig had been terminated from his previous position for implementing similar inappropriate management practices. His references had apparently not disclosed the full circumstances of his departure, and our hiring process hadn't uncovered the problematic aspects of his management style. Craig was ultimately terminated for creating a hostile work environment and implementing unsafe and discriminatory employment practices. The company provided additional training for all managers about appropriate performance evaluation methods and workplace safety requirements. The sales department returned to more conventional management approaches focused on actual job performance, professional development, and client relationship building. Most employees were relieved to return to an environment where promotions were based on sales results rather than bizarre physical and mental challenges. The whole experience taught our company the importance of more thorough reference checking and background investigation for management positions. Craig's innovative approaches to motivation turned out to be inappropriate and potentially dangerous practices that created more problems than they solved. Several employees who had participated in Craig's challenges reported feeling manipulated and exploited by the experience. Some had pushed themselves to complete dangerous or uncomfortable tasks because they feared losing promotion opportunities or being labelled as uncommitted team members. That's the end of that story. The idea of making sales employees compete in survival challenges and eating contests to determine promotions is so far beyond appropriate management that it borders on workplace abuse. Craig essentially turned the office into his personal reality TV show, where people's careers depended on their willingness to humiliate themselves and risk injury for his entertainment. The fact that he had a history of this behavior at previous companies makes it even more disturbing. My co-worker has been stealing everyone's lunches from the office refrigerator and selling them at marked-up prices to delivery drivers and construction workers. I work as an administrative coordinator at a busy medical clinic with about 30 staff members, including doctors, nurses, technicians, and support personnel. We have a shared break room with refrigerators, where employees store their lunches and snacks throughout the day. About 4 months ago, people started complaining that their lunches were disappearing from the refrigerators with increasing frequency. Initially, everyone assumed it was just typical office lunch theft, where someone occasionally took the wrong item by mistake, or perhaps one person was taking lunches due to financial difficulties. But the lunch disappearances became more systematic and widespread. Multiple people would discover their missing meals on the same day, and the thefts seemed to target higher quality, more expensive lunches rather than basic sandwiches or simple meals. Homemade gourmet dishes, specialty salads, and elaborate meal prep containers were particularly likely to vanish. Staff members became frustrated and began labeling their food more clearly, storing lunches in less obvious locations, and even bringing insulated bags to keep meals at their desks. Despite these precautions, the lunch thefts continued and seemed to be getting more brazen and frequent. The situation created tension throughout the clinic as people became suspicious of their colleagues and started guarding their food more protectively. Some employees began bringing less appealing lunches or stopped bringing homemade meals altogether to avoid having them stolen. The break room atmosphere became uncomfortable and distrustful. I decided to investigate the lunch thefts more systematically after my own elaborate pasta salad disappeared, despite being clearly labelled and stored in a concealed location. I started paying more attention to patterns in the thefts and began monitoring the break room more frequently during lunch periods. My breakthrough came when I noticed that one of our filing clerks, Jennifer, never seemed to bring lunch, but also never complained about the lunch thefts that were affecting everyone else. She would spend her lunch breaks outside the building and always seemed to have food when she returned, but I never saw her purchase anything from nearby restaurants. I began observing Jennifer's behavior more closely and discovered that she was systematically removing lunches from our refrigerators early in the morning before most staff arrived. She would take multiple meals and store them in a large, insulated cooler that she kept in her car. The real surprise came when I followed Jennifer during her lunch break and discovered that she had set up an informal food sales operation in the parking lot behind our building. She was selling the stolen lunches to delivery drivers, construction workers, and other people who worked in the area and were looking for convenient meal options. Jennifer had essentially turned our office refrigerator into her personal inventory for a lunch sales business. She was taking meals that employees had prepared or purchased for themselves and reselling them at marked-up prices to customers who had no idea they were buying stolen food. Her pricing strategy was particularly brazen. She was charging $8 to $12 for lunches that employees had probably spent $4 to $6 preparing or purchasing. She was making a significant profit margin on each stolen meal, while creating frustration and expense for her colleagues. Jennifer had even created a simple menu system where she would text regular customers about available meal options based on what she had stolen that day. She had developed a small but loyal customer base who appreciated the convenience and variety of her informal lunch service. When I confronted Jennifer about the lunch thefts and her sales operation, she initially denied any wrongdoing and claimed that she was selling her own homemade meals to earn extra income. She said the lunches in her car were food she had prepared at home and that the similarity to missing office lunches was just a coincidence. But when I presented evidence of her systematically removing specific meals from our refrigerators and pointed out that her sales inventory exactly matched items that had been reported stolen, Jennifer's story began falling apart. She eventually admitted to taking lunches, but tried to minimize the situation by claiming she was only taking items that appeared to be forgotten or unclaimed. Jennifer attempted to justify her lunch theft business by arguing that she was providing a valuable service to workers in the area who needed convenient meal options. She said that many of the lunches she took would have spoiled anyway, and that her customers were happy to pay for the food she provided. I reported Jennifer's lunch theft and sales operation to our clinic administrator and human resources department. The systematic nature of her thefts and the fact that she was profiting from stolen property made this a serious employment and potentially criminal matter. The investigation revealed that Jennifer had been operating her lunch sales business for several months and had stolen food worth hundreds of dollars from her colleagues. She had kept detailed records of her sales and profits, which provided clear evidence of the scope of her theft operation. Jennifer was terminated immediately for theft of employee property and violation of workplace trust. The clinic also reported the matter to local law enforcement because selling stolen property, even food items, constitutes a criminal offense that could result in charges for theft and receiving stolen goods. The discovery of Jennifer's lunch sales operation explained the systematic pattern of thefts that had been affecting our workplace for months. Her business approach to stealing lunches was more organized and profit-motivated than the typical office food theft situations most people had assumed were happening. After Jennifer's termination, the lunch thefts stopped completely, confirming that she had been responsible for the vast majority of missing meals. Employees were relieved to return to normal lunch routines without worrying about their food disappearing from the refrigerators. The incident led to enhanced security measures in our break room, including better lighting and more frequent monitoring during early morning and evening hours when fewer people were around. We also implemented clearer policies about food storage and procedures for reporting suspected theft. Several employees mentioned feeling violated by Jennifer's systematic theft of their personal lunches, especially knowing that she was profiting from their time and money spent preparing or purchasing meals. The breach of workplace trust created lasting concerns about security and colleague relationships. That's the end of that story. The entrepreneurial spirit of turning office lunch theft into a profitable catering business is almost admirable in its complete shamelessness. Jennifer basically treated her colleague's refrigerator as her personal wholesale food supplier and built a customer base around stolen sandwiches and pasta salads. The fact that she kept detailed sales records of her theft operation shows this wasn't casual lunch snatching, but a calculated business venture built on workplace crime. My employee pretended to be deaf for 6 months to avoid work responsibilities and social interactions, but I caught her responding to sounds she couldn't have heard if her deafness was real. I'm the customer service manager at a call center that handles technical support for a software company. We employ about 40 representatives who assist customers with troubleshooting, account management, and general product questions. 3 months ago, we hired Angela as a customer service representative with previous experience in retail and some background in computer technology. During her interview, she mentioned having a hearing impairment that might require some workplace accommodations, but she assured us that she could perform the essential functions of the job with appropriate support. Angela requested accommodations, including a specialized headset for phone calls, visual notification systems for alerts and messages, and permission to use instant messaging for internal communications instead of verbal interactions. These seemed like reasonable accommodations that we could easily provide, and we were committed to supporting employees with disabilities. Angela's initial performance was adequate, though she seemed to struggle with some aspects of phone-based customer service that we attributed to her hearing challenges. She relied heavily on written communication and seemed to prefer email and chat support over voice calls, which we accommodated by adjusting her assignment mix. Her colleagues were supportive and made efforts to include Angela in team activities while being mindful of her communication needs. People would face her directly when speaking, use written messages for important information, and generally tried to create an inclusive work environment. However, after about 6 weeks, I began noticing some inconsistencies in Angela's behavior that seemed unusual for someone with the level of hearing impairment she claimed. She would occasionally respond to sounds or comments that occurred outside her direct line of sight in ways that suggested she had heard them clearly. The first significant incident occurred during a team meeting, where Angela was looking down at her notes while I was discussing schedule changes. When I mentioned that overtime would be optional for the following week, Angela immediately looked up and smiled. even though she supposedly couldn't have heard the announcement and no one had been providing her with written interpretation. I started paying closer attention to Angela's responses during various workplace situations and noticed several instances where her behavior seemed inconsistent with profound hearing loss. She would react to sudden loud noises, turn toward conversations happening behind her, and seem to anticipate sounds before they became visible to her. The most obvious example occurred during a fire drill when the alarm system activated. Angela was facing away from the visual alert lights when the alarm began, but she immediately stood up and began moving toward the exit before the visual notifications would have been visible to her. Her response time was actually faster than some employees who had clearly heard the alarm. I became more suspicious when I observed Angela during her breaks and lunch periods. When she thought no one was watching, she seemed to respond normally to sounds around her, including conversations at nearby tables, background music, and environmental noises that wouldn't be audible to someone with significant hearing loss. Angela also seemed surprisingly well informed about office conversations and gossip that typically spread through verbal communication rather than written messages. She would make comments or ask questions that suggested she had overheard discussions that she shouldn't have been able to hear if her deafness was genuine. The situation became more problematic when I realized that Angela was using her claimed hearing impairment to avoid certain work responsibilities and social obligations. She would claim not to have heard verbal instructions, decline to participate in phone-based training sessions, and excuse herself from meetings by saying the audio content wasn't accessible to her. Angela had also begun requesting increasingly accommodating work arrangements, including reduced phone call quotas, exemption from certain training requirements, and permission to work independently rather than participating in team collaborations. She seemed to be leveraging her claimed disability to create a more comfortable and less demanding work environment. My concerns reached a breaking point when I decided to test Angela's hearing abilities more directly. During a team meeting, I deliberately made a quiet comment about schedule changes while Angela was looking away and apparently not paying attention. She immediately responded with questions about the changes, clearly having heard every word despite claiming severe hearing loss. I documented several instances of Angela's inconsistent responses to audio stimuli and consulted with our Human Resources Department about how to address potential disability fraud. We decided to require updated medical documentation about her hearing impairment and her specific accommodation needs. When Angela was asked to provide current audiological testing and medical records supporting her claimed hearing loss, she became defensive and accused the company of discriminating against her disability. She said that questioning her accommodation needs was inappropriate and potentially illegal under disability rights laws. Angela initially refused to provide updated medical documentation, claiming that her disability was obvious and that requiring proof was discriminatory. She threatened to file complaints with disability rights organizations and suggested that any further questioning about her hearing loss would constitute harassment. However, when we explained that periodic medical documentation was standard practice for ongoing accommodation requests, and that we needed current information to ensure we were providing appropriate support, Angela reluctantly agreed to undergo audiological testing. The medical evaluation revealed that Angela had normal hearing abilities with no evidence of significant hearing loss or impairment. The audiologist's report confirmed that her hearing was within typical ranges and that she did not require any of the accommodations she had been receiving. When confronted with the medical evidence that contradicted her claimed hearing impairment, Angela initially tried to argue that her hearing loss was intermittent or that the testing wasn't accurate. She eventually admitted that she had exaggerated her hearing difficulties to obtain workplace accommodations and avoid certain job responsibilities. Angela was terminated for providing false information about her disability status and fraudulently obtaining workplace accommodations. Her deception had not only violated company policies, but also potentially violated laws regarding false claims for disability accommodations and benefits. The incident created significant disruption for our team, as colleagues felt deceived and manipulated by Angela's fraudulent disability claims. Employees who had made genuine efforts to be inclusive and supportive were particularly upset to learn that their consideration had been exploited for personal advantage. We had to review our accommodation procedures and implement additional verification requirements to prevent similar fraud while still maintaining our commitment to supporting employees with legitimate disabilities. The experience highlighted the importance of proper medical documentation and ongoing verification for accommodation requests. The whole situation was particularly troubling because Angela's fraud potentially made it more difficult for employees with genuine hearing impairments to receive trust and support in the workplace. Her deception contributed to skepticism about disability claims that could harm people with legitimate accommodation needs. That's the end of that story. The calculated deception of faking a disability for 6 months to avoid work responsibilities is absolutely despicable and harmful to people with genuine hearing impairments. Angela essentially performed an elaborate acting job to manipulate her colleagues' sympathy while creating a more comfortable work environment for herself. The fact that she threatened discrimination lawsuits when asked for medical documentation shows how far she was willing to take the fraud to protect her deception. My co-worker turned our entire office into her personal pyramid scheme recruitment center and tried to get everyone involved in selling overpriced skincare products. I work as an accounts receivable specialist at a regional medical equipment distributor with about 40 employees across various departments, including sales, customer service, warehouse operations, and administrative support. Our office environment has always been professional and focused on business operations rather than personal ventures or side businesses. About 5 months ago, we hired Sandra as a customer service representative with previous experience in retail and some background in medical equipment sales. She seemed enthusiastic and professional during her interview process, with good communication skills and solid references from her previous employers. Sandra integrated well into our customer service team initially, learning our product lines quickly and developing good relationships with both internal colleagues and external clients. She was friendly, outgoing, and seemed genuinely interested in helping customers solve their medical equipment needs and concerns. After about 6 weeks in her position, Sandra began mentioning her interest in skincare and beauty products during casual conversations with colleagues. She would compliment people on their appearance and offer advice about skincare routines, makeup techniques, and general beauty tips that seemed helpful and well-intentioned. Sandra started bringing skincare samples to work and offering them to colleagues who had mentioned issues like dry skin, acne, or signs of aging. She would provide detailed explanations about ingredient benefits and usage instructions, positioning herself as knowledgeable about beauty and wellness products. Initially, Sandra's skincare advice seemed like friendly colleague interaction, especially since several people found her product recommendations genuinely helpful. She had good knowledge about different skin types and seemed to understand how various ingredients worked for different beauty concerns. But Sandra's skincare discussions gradually became more frequent and detailed, eventually dominating conversations during breaks, lunch periods, and even brief interactions between meetings. She would bring catalogues, product brochures, and pricing information to share with anyone who showed interest in her beauty recommendations. The situation escalated when Sandra began hosting what she called skincare education sessions during lunch breaks in our conference room. She would present information about proper skincare routines, demonstrate product applications, and provide detailed explanations about the science behind various beauty treatments and ingredients. These lunch sessions attracted several employees who were genuinely interested in learning about skincare, and Sandra seemed knowledgeable and passionate about helping people improve their appearance and confidence. Her presentations were well organized and informative, covering topics that many people found valuable. However, Sandra's skincare education sessions gradually evolved into sales presentations for a multi-level marketing company that sold premium beauty products. She began offering special pricing for colleagues, group ordering opportunities, and membership benefits that would provide ongoing discounts and exclusive access to new products. Sandra explained that she had become an independent consultant for this skincare company and could provide professional-grade products at wholesale prices to friends and colleagues. She emphasized that she was sharing this opportunity because she genuinely believed in the products and wanted to help people achieve better skincare results. The sales pressure started subtly, with Sandra mentioning limited-time promotions, exclusive deals for new customers, and special bonuses for people who placed orders during her lunch presentations. She would follow up with individuals after the sessions to answer questions and encourage them to try specific products. Sandra's approach became more aggressive when she started scheduling one-on-one skincare consultations with colleagues during work hours. She would book conference rooms for these personal sessions, where she analyzed people's skin conditions and recommended specific product regimens that typically cost several $100s. During these consultations, Sandra would take detailed notes about people's skincare concerns, photograph their faces to document current conditions, and create personalized treatment plans that required purchasing multiple products from her MLM company. She positioned these consultations as professional services rather than sales presentations. The situation became problematic when Sandra began recruiting colleagues to become independent consultants themselves. She explained that selling skincare products could provide significant supplemental income, and that her most successful team members were earning thousands of dollars per month through product sales and recruitment commissions. Sandra's recruitment presentations focused on financial opportunities and lifestyle benefits rather than product quality or customer satisfaction. She would share income testimonials, success stories, and projections about potential earnings that made the MLM opportunity seem like a guaranteed path to financial independence. Several employees felt pressured to purchase products or join Sandra's sales team because she was making these presentations during mandatory work hours and using company facilities for her MLM activities. Declining her offers felt awkward and potentially harmful to workplace relationships. Sandra also began using our employee directory and internal communication systems to send promotional messages about product specials, recruitment opportunities, and skincare tips that were really marketing materials for her MLM business. She was essentially treating our workplace as her personal customer base and recruitment pool. The breaking point came when Sandra started requiring colleagues who had purchased products to provide testimonials and before and after photos for her marketing materials. She was using her workplace relationships to generate content for her MLM business promotion and recruitment efforts. I reported Sandra's MLM activities to our human resources department because her sales and recruitment efforts were creating an uncomfortable work environment and potentially violating policies about using company time and resources for personal business ventures. The investigation revealed that Sandra had been systematically targeting colleagues for MLM recruitment and sales during work hours, using company facilities for her business presentations, and leveraging workplace relationships for personal financial gain. Her activities had generated numerous complaints from employees who felt pressured and uncomfortable. Sandra was given a formal warning about separating her MLM business from her work responsibilities and was prohibited from conducting any sales or recruitment activities during work hours or on company property. She was also required to stop using company communication systems for her personal business promotion. Sandra initially argued that she was providing valuable skincare education and business opportunities to colleagues who were interested in these topics. She claimed that her MLM activities were helping people improve their appearance and financial situations, and that restricting her business efforts was unfair. However, when multiple employees confirmed that they felt pressured and uncomfortable with Sandra's constant sales pitches and recruitment efforts, management made it clear that her MLM activities were creating a hostile work environment and needed to stop completely. Sandra complied with the restrictions for about 2 weeks, but then began conducting her MLM activities more discreetly through personal text messages, private social media groups, and off-site meetings with colleagues. She was essentially continuing her workplace-based MLM business through alternative channels. When it became clear that Sandra was unable to separate her MLM business from her workplace relationships, she was terminated for continued violations of company policies regarding personal business activities and creating an uncomfortable work environment for colleagues. After Sandra's departure, several employees mentioned feeling relieved that they no longer had to navigate constant sales pressure and recruitment attempts. Some people had spent hundreds of dollars on products they didn't really want or need because they felt obligated to support a colleague's business venture. The incident led to clearer policies about employee solicitation and personal business activities in the workplace. We also provided training for managers about identifying and addressing MLM-related pressure and harassment that can develop when employees target colleagues for recruitment and sales. That's the end of that story. The systematic transformation of workplace relationships into MLM recruitment opportunities shows how pyramid schemes can poison professional environments. Sandra essentially held her colleagues hostage to her skincare sales pitches and turned the office into her personal customer base. The fact that people felt obligated to buy products they didn't want just to maintain workplace harmony shows how manipulative these schemes can become. My co-worker has been hoarding office supplies and equipment for 2 years and turned his cubicle into a storage warehouse that violates fire safety codes. I work as a data analyst at a mid-sized insurance company with about 70 employees spread across 2 floors of an office building. We have standard cubicle workspaces with shared common areas, supply closets, and equipment storage rooms throughout our facility. 18 months ago, we hired Robert as a senior analyst with extensive experience in statistical modeling and database management. He had strong technical credentials and seemed well organized and detail-oriented during his interview process. His background included previous positions at consulting firms and government agencies where attention to detail and resource management were important. Robert appeared to integrate well into our analytics team initially, contributing effectively to our quarterly reporting processes and demonstrating solid technical skills with our database systems and analytical software. He was methodical in his approach to projects and seemed to take pride in maintaining organized work processes. After about 3 months, I began noticing that Robert's cubicle area contained more supplies and equipment than seemed necessary for normal work activities. He had multiple boxes of printer paper, dozens of pens and markers, several calculators, and various other office materials that appeared to exceed typical individual needs. When I casually mentioned Robert's well-stocked workspace, he explained that he preferred to keep adequate supplies readily available to avoid interrupting his workflow when materials ran low. He said that having backup supplies helped him maintain productivity during busy periods when supply closets might be empty or inaccessible. Robert's supply collection seemed reasonable for someone who valued preparation and organization, especially since our company encouraged employees to be self-sufficient and proactive about managing their work resources. His approach appeared to be conscientious planning rather than problematic behavior. However, over the following months, Robert's supply accumulation expanded significantly beyond what could reasonably be considered personal work preparation. His cubicle began filling with boxes of materials that were stacked floor to ceiling around his workspace, creating narrow pathways between towering piles of office supplies. Robert had acquired multiple printers, scanners, computers, monitors, keyboards, and other expensive equipment that he claimed were necessary for his analytical work. He would request backup systems for critical projects, redundant equipment for testing purposes, and specialized tools for data processing activities that seemed legitimate but resulted in substantial equipment accumulation. His workspace became increasingly cluttered and difficult to navigate, with supplies and equipment organized in complex stacking systems that maximize storage capacity within his assigned cubicle space. The arrangement looked more like a warehouse inventory system than a typical office workspace. Robert's hoarding behavior extended beyond office supplies to include furniture, reference materials, technical manuals, and various other workplace resources. He would acquire multiple chairs, desks, filing cabinets, and storage units that he arranged throughout his expanded workspace area. The situation became concerning when Robert's accumulated materials began spilling over into adjacent cubicles and common areas. He would store overflow supplies in empty workspaces, under stairwells, and in corners of conference rooms where he thought the materials wouldn't be noticed or disturbed. Robert's supply hoarding also affected our inventory management and purchasing processes. He would submit requests for large quantities of materials that exceeded normal usage patterns, often claiming urgent project needs or bulk purchasing efficiency as justification for his substantial supply orders. Our facilities manager became concerned when Robert's workspace modifications began affecting building safety and accessibility standards. His towering stacks of materials created fire hazards by blocking emergency exits, exceeding weight limits for cubicle structures, and obstructing sprinkler systems and ventilation equipment. The breakthrough came during a routine fire safety inspection, when the inspector identified multiple code violations in Robert's workspace area. The accumulated materials created serious safety hazards that could trap people during emergencies and prevent proper functioning of fire suppression systems. When I investigated Robert's supply accumulation more systematically, I discovered that he had been systematically acquiring office materials and equipment far beyond any legitimate work requirements. His cubicle contained thousands of dollars worth of supplies that would last an individual employee several years under normal usage patterns. Robert had developed sophisticated justifications for each category of supplies and equipment in his collection. He would cite specific project requirements, backup system needs, efficiency improvements, and cost savings that made each acquisition seem reasonable when considered individually. However, the cumulative effect of Robert's hoarding behavior was that he had essentially created a private office supply warehouse within our workplace. His collection included items that he couldn't possibly use within a reasonable time frame, and equipment that duplicated functionality of systems already available throughout our office. When confronted about the scope of his supply accumulation and the safety violations it had created, Robert became defensive and insisted that all of his materials were necessary for his work responsibilities. He argued that his organization system was efficient and that other employees were simply less prepared and organized. Robert claimed that his supply collection represented good resource management and forward planning that saved the company money through bulk purchasing and reduced the risk of work delays due to material shortages. He seemed genuinely convinced that his hoarding behavior was beneficial rather than problematic. However, when facilities management calculated the costs of Robert's accumulated supplies and equipment, the total value exceeded $15,000 in materials that were far beyond normal individual employee needs. Much of the equipment was redundant or unnecessary for his actual job responsibilities. The fire safety violations in Robert's workspace required immediate remediation to bring our building into compliance with safety codes. The accumulated materials had to be removed, redistributed, or disposed of to restore proper emergency access and fire suppression system functionality. Robert was required to reduce his supply collection to reasonable levels for individual employee needs and to cease acquiring additional materials beyond normal work requirements. He was also prohibited from storing any supplies or equipment in common areas or other employees' workspace. Robert initially resisted the requirements to reduce his supply collection, arguing that the materials were essential for his productivity and that forcing him to give up his organized resource system would harm his work performance. He He seemed to view his hoarding as a professional advantage rather than a workplace problem. When it became clear that Robert was unable to maintain reasonable supply levels and continued to accumulate materials despite management directives, he was terminated for violating workplace safety policies and misusing company resources for personal hoarding behavior. The cleanup of Robert's workspace required several days and a professional moving service to remove and redistribute the accumulated supplies and equipment. Much of the material had to be donated or disposed of because it exceeded our normal usage needs and storage capacity. After Robert's departure, our company implemented stricter controls on supply ordering and equipment requests to prevent similar hoarding behavior. We also established regular workspace inspections to ensure compliance with safety codes and appropriate use of company resources. That's the end of that story. The gradual transformation of a cubicle into a fire hazard warehouse filled with $15,000 worth of hoarded office supplies is workplace dysfunction on an epic scale. Robert essentially created his own private supply depot, while convincing himself it was efficient resource management. The fact that it took a fire safety inspection to reveal the scope of his hoarding shows how gradually these situations can escalate until they become genuine safety threats. My boss secretly filmed everyone in the office for 3 months and tried to turn our workplace into a reality TV show without anyone's consent. I work as a marketing coordinator for a small advertising agency that handles campaigns for local businesses and non-profit organizations. We have about 15 employees, including creative staff, account managers, and administrative support personnel, working in an open office environment. 2 months ago, our agency owner and creative director Marcus announced that he had been developing an innovative approach to workplace productivity and team dynamics that would revolutionize how creative agencies operate. He seemed excited about this new project and hinted that it would bring significant positive changes to our work environment. Marcus explained that he had been studying successful business models and management techniques from various industries, including entertainment and media companies. He said he wanted to implement some cutting-edge strategies that would improve our agency's culture while creating new opportunities for professional development and recognition. Initially, Marcus's enthusiasm seemed positive, though somewhat vague about the specific changes he was planning. He mentioned that the new approach would involve more transparency, better documentation of our creative processes, and innovative ways to showcase our team's talents and capabilities to potential clients. Marcus began making subtle changes to our office setup, including installing what he claimed was upgraded security equipment and improved lighting systems. He explained that these improvements would create a more professional environment and provide better documentation of our work processes for client presentations and case studies. Around the same time, Marcus started encouraging more collaboration and interaction among team members. He would arrange impromptu brainstorming sessions, organize informal team meetings, and create situations where people were working together on projects in more visible and dynamic ways. Marcus also began asking employees to be more expressive and engaging during client meetings and presentations. He said that showcasing our personalities and creative energy would help differentiate our agency from competitors and build stronger client relationships. The changes seemed harmless and potentially beneficial, though some employees mentioned that Marcus seemed unusually interested in documenting our daily activities and interactions. He would take notes during conversations, ask detailed questions about project processes, and encourage people to share personal insights about their work experiences. About 6 weeks after these changes began, I discovered the truth about Marcus's innovative workplace project. While working late one evening, I noticed a small camera lens in what I had assumed was a decorative light fixture above the main work area. Further investigation revealed multiple hidden cameras throughout the office. I found cameras concealed in plants, picture frames, ventilation grates, and various other locations that provided comprehensive coverage of our entire workspace. The cameras were sophisticated enough to capture both video and audio, creating complete surveillance of all employee activities and conversations. When I confronted Marcus about the hidden cameras, he initially tried to deny their existence, then claimed they were for security purposes to protect expensive equipment and client materials. When I pressed him about the extent of the surveillance and lack of employee notification, he became defensive and evasive. Marcus eventually revealed that he had been filming our workplace for 3 months as part of what he called a groundbreaking reality television concept. He explained that he was documenting authentic workplace dynamics and creative processes to develop a show about advertising agency culture that he believed would be entertaining and educational. Marcus had been working with a production company to develop this reality show concept, and had been using our agency and employees as unwitting content creators. He claimed that the footage he had captured showed genuine workplace drama, creative collaboration, and personality conflicts that would make compelling television. Marcus seemed genuinely surprised that employees were upset about being secretly filmed for his television project. He argued that reality shows were popular entertainment and that featuring our agency could provide valuable exposure and marketing opportunities that would benefit everyone's careers. He tried to convince employees that participating in his reality show would be a positive opportunity for professional recognition, and that the footage he had already captured demonstrated how talented and interesting our team was. He suggested that we should be excited about the potential fame and career advancement the show could provide. When employees demanded that Marcus stop filming and delete all existing footage, he became argumentative and accused us of lacking vision and entrepreneurial spirit. He said that reality television was a legitimate business opportunity and that we were foolishly rejecting a chance for media exposure and potential financial benefits. Marcus claimed that he had legal ownership of the footage because it was recorded on his property during work hours, and that employees didn't have reasonable expectations of privacy in a workplace environment. He threatened to proceed with his television project regardless of employee objections. Several employees immediately contacted employment attorneys about the legal implications of secret workplace filming and potential violations of privacy rights. We learned that recording employees without consent, especially for commercial entertainment purposes, violated multiple state laws regarding workplace surveillance and privacy protection. The legal consultation revealed that Marcus's secret filming operation could result in serious criminal charges and civil liability for invasion of privacy, unauthorized commercial use of people's likeness, and violation of workplace safety and privacy regulations. When presented with legal documentation about the violations his filming project had created, Marcus initially refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. He maintained that his reality show concept was legitimate business development and that employees were overreacting to innovative workplace practices. However, facing potential criminal charges and civil lawsuits from multiple employees, Marcus eventually agreed to destroy all footage and cease any further filming activities. He was required to provide sworn affidavits confirming the destruction of all recorded material and to allow independent verification of the camera removal. Several employees quit immediately after learning about the secret filming, feeling that their privacy and trust had been fundamentally violated. Others filed formal complaints with labor departments and privacy protection agencies about Marcus's unauthorized surveillance activities. The agency's reputation suffered significantly when word spread about Marcus's secret filming project. Clients became concerned about confidentiality and privacy protection, and several terminated their contracts due to concerns about potential unauthorized recording of their business discussions and proprietary information. Marcus was eventually forced to sell the agency and faced multiple legal consequences for his unauthorized filming activities. The incident became a cautionary tale in our industry about the importance of employee privacy rights and appropriate boundaries for workplace documentation. The whole experience was deeply disturbing for everyone involved, as we realized that months of private conversations, personal interactions, and confidential work activities had been recorded without our knowledge or consent for someone else's potential entertainment and profit. That's the end of that story. The violation of secretly filming employees for months to create a reality TV show without consent is one of the most disturbing breaches of workplace privacy imaginable. Marcus essentially turned his entire staff into unwilling performers in his entertainment project, while capturing their private conversations and personal moments for potential commercial exploitation. The fact that he thought employees should be grateful for being secretly filmed shows a complete disconnect from basic human decency and legal boundaries. Let me know in the comments which of these stories shocked you the most. And if you have any workplace drama of your own, feel free to share. Thanks for listening to another round of Reddit stories. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed these, and I'll see you next time with more tales. Sweet dreams, and take care.
you